Man, I always get like stage fright before we clap. So I'm always worried I'm gonna like miss my hand and not actually
What?
clap.
Well, that's right. Oh, and then I'd be like, what?
And then there's just no
What?
sound. It's like performance anxiety.
Clapping anxiety.
Well, welcome to episode 10.
Oh! Oh, jeez, that was loud again. let me fiddle with my microphone.
What are
sounds.
you? You're like on. I don't know what it is, man. You got a lot of energy in you today.
Yeah, it's because we missed week, so I had twice the time to not have to learn about president.
Crazy thing.
So you learned about Tippecanoe and Tyler too?
I didn't go fully into it because I know we talked about it before, but we can look it up if you'd like.
Well, you've learned about Tyler too.
John Tyler?
Did you study the wrong president again?
Did it happen again?
Who are you supposed to be studying?
Number 10, John Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
His
God,
last
man.
name's Tyler.
Oh,
You had me panicking. We're gonna
Me
have to do another
too.
AI episode.
I even looked. Okay, yeah, it's I looked at the episodes too. I went into our recording. It's like it's episode 10. Who's the 10th president? John
Remember,
Tyler.
The last
He
one
was-
died after a month.
And yeah, and he was after. God, man, you can't do that to me. I just threw up inside. Oh.
Okay, we're on track.
And after I talked about my clap anxiety and like me not being able to clap properly.
All right, so hit me with a good president, bad president.
All
Is
right.
he my favorite?
He's not my favorite. So
Why
far,
not?
Van Buren is still number 1 for me.
Mm-hmm.
And in the words of my mother, never trust someone with 2 first names.
That's true.
John Tyler. He was the first.
What about 3 last names?
I don't know.
William Henry
I don't
Harrison?
know if. Well, that's the thing. Is Harrison? Oh yeah, Harrison is a first name.
Harrison Ford.
Interesting.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Continue.
I made the mistake of getting crackers as a snack, and I realized that's not going to look good for audio, so I'm just going to put this
Oh,
to the
that's
side.
okay. No, you can eat. We'll do. Hey, whoa, wait. How many crackers you got there?
There's enough. There's enough. It's okay. I have cheese and cucumber.
Do you want to do that cracker contest first?
Do you want
know
like
that?
an ASMR?
No, you try and see if you can eat 6 crackers in under a minute.
In under
Have
a
you
minute?
ever done that? But
No.
you're not allowed to drink water. Have you ever
Oh
tried
God,
that?
no, thank you. No, I don't want
What kind of crackers are these?
They're sesame crackers. Like they're rice crackers, like sesame crackers.
I don't know.
They're not
maybe
super
it's doable.
dry, so I might be able to do it.
Yeah,
But
they're
I
not
also
like saltines.
no, they're like a charcuterie board cracker.
We're talking about crackers in the first 3 minutes. All right. Try eating 3 crackers in under 30 seconds. See
I'm
if
doing
you
it
can
now.
do that.
I don't think you hear it, but I can see my little recording thing doing stuff, so it's fine. I got other
You can
stuff
hear
that isn't
crunching.
crunchy. I got cucumber.
Sorry,
I
I
got cheese.
interrupted
I got some
you.
salami.
Okay.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. This is like we're loosey goosey. We're hanging out. We're just two buds talking about presidents.
Talking about crackers.
Yeah. So John Tyler was the first. Well, first of all, he was the vice president of William Henry Harrison, who we learned about last week or last episode.
Who died after a month.
And who died after a month of being inaugurated because he went for a brisk walk in the early morning rain.
Yep.
Or,
That'll do it.
just other things. But also, John Tyler was never elected. He didn't go through an election process. And he basically set the precedence for future, like, how it works. So, people were just uncertain. Like, when Harrison died, people were like, what do we do? We've never had a president die or step down or anything before. What do we do? And John Tyler was just like, don't worry, guys. I'm gonna go read, I'm gonna read my rights, and I'm the president now.
Good for
And
him.
basically, they were like, okay, I guess that's what we're gonna do now. Is if anything happens to the president, the vice president will just take over. They didn't really have a rule for it yet, which feels very medieval to me, where it's like, oops, the king's dead. He totally told me that he wants me to be the next king. No one else was there but me. Just trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Feels very.
I think that he did a good. It was a good idea to be like, no, I'm president. because
Yeah,
they
definitely
would
took
they would have
charge.
walked all over him.
Yeah. Also, too, pandemonium, right? Like, you could start getting to the argument of, like, oh, maybe the runner-up who ran for president should be the president. You know what I mean? Or he was just, like,
Wouldn't
he
that
took-
also have been him though?
No, because I think they stopped doing the loser became vice president. It became
Oh,
a
so they're
party
now
versus party.
picking.
Yeah, I
their-
think I don't know who. I think Van Buren ran against Harrison, and lost to Harrison. So Van Buren would have you could have argued that the previous president who ran against him should be the next person to come in and do it. But he just took life by the reins and made it happen. So we're docking points from John Tyler. He was from a prominent slaveholding family from Virginia. He supported a lot of southern states and ended up at the end, which we'll get to, he joined up with the Confederacy during the Civil War as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was
Wait, but he was a Whig though? Or
he was a
just running
Whig.
as a-
So he was a Whig, but halfway through his presidency, the Whig fired him. And
they're like, you're not a real Whig.
Yeah, he was president, and then he went in and was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna pass all your bills," and then didn't, and they're like, "Man, you suck," and so they fired him, and then his entire cabinet quit, and he ran the rest of his presidency, I think 2 or 3 years as unaffiliated to anything, and had to rehire a bunch of people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man with no party.
Man with no party. Yeah, he was a supporter of states' rights, which I had to look this up a
Code for
lot.
slavery.
Yeah. Nowadays, I think it's more of they're like, hey, we want the state officials to make choices for sewage supply and garbage disposals and stuff. But back then, from what I kind of surmised, it was their main argument for slavery, because they were like, it's my state, my rules. I should be able to decide as a governor or a statesman what we can do in the state, and we don't want the president to tell us what to do. He was also very anti-British, so I think that was their kind of argument where they're like, you're trying to be like the Britons. They're just like, no, bro, we just don't want you to have slaves. You can still be America, just don't have slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did learn something interesting. It was they were it was getting to the point now in history where they're starting to America's expanding, and they're trying to ensure that I was going to say racism, that slavery wasn't allowed in the new states.
Yeah.
And so they kind of clinched it off there.
Yeah. I think also the one we talked about last time too is Texas was a part of Mexico, and they separated, and so it's also expanding. They're expanding and they're getting new states as well as they're growing. They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool.
It's turning into the America we know today.
Yeah, and then soon they'll buy Alaska. That's a while.
Did they buy it from Russia? Do you know?
I think they bought it from us.
We could be Russian. Who knows?
That's
I'm
true,
I'm going
actually.
back again. No, we're Canadian.
Trying to keep up the ruse.
Do we sound Russian?
Da. In Soviet Russia, Alaska buys you.
Yeah, Alaska buys you. Yeah.
Alaska buys you. Okay, so talked about it already. But yes, he was originally. Well, actually, sorry, we didn't talk about this. Tyler was originally Democratic.
Mm-hmm.
But then when Andrew Jackson was in in presidency, he didn't like Andrew Jackson, didn't like how he ran the government. And during that time, he left the Democrats and became the Whig Party. The biggest thing that he had an issue with was, I guess, the bank war that we talked about.
Do you know what that is yet? I still don't know what that is.
Here's the thing. I read it, and I'll be honest, I got halfway through it, and I had to read it a couple times because my brain kept shutting off when I was reading it. Because they're using a lot of big words that that I just didn't want to try and figure out.
Maybe I'll make a little side quest next.
So,
maybe there's a bank war for James Polk.
Here's my paragraph that I wrote down. This is what I powered through.
Mm-hmm.
So, the bank war was a political struggle that developed over the issue of the Second Bank of the United States, or BUS, Bank of the United States, during Andrew Jackson's presidency. And basically the affair and like the disputes they were having eventually shut down the bank. And its replacement was a state bank. So it was a private bank that had a 20-year charter, which means business license in banking
words.
worlds. And of course, there's probably finance people out there that are like, man, Dutch is fucking this up. But basically allowed them, they were a private bank, and they were able to do like bank deals or do some sort of charter business and fund stuff at like a national level. Mm-hmm. And so this bill that was going to be passed that Andrew Jackson stopped, they were, I guess, advertising it as like they wanted to create a national or a uniform currency. So I guess in these times they were still trading pelts, and there was like gold being exchanged and not necessarily like the American dollar. Mm-hmm. And Andrew Jackson thought it was corrupt because he thought it favored the merchants at the expense of a lot of the farmers, and a lot of these like I guess rural businesses would basically have their taxes and tariffs increased because of this uniformed bill or uniformed currency, and so that's why he stopped it. And John Tyler was like, "You're an idiot. Like, we need a uniform currency," which eventually they did. I just think it was, I think at the time, what this Bank of the United States was trying to do was possibly corrupt, but eventually
was possibly what, sir?
Corrupt.
Oh,
like I do think they were trying to push, like I think the way that they were trying to get this uniform, they wanted all control out of it, and so you basically would have had a completely privatized bank, and it wouldn't have been connected to the government. Where now it mm-hmm. is, right? Which is a better thing, right? Because then you can check yourself. You've got these two powerhouses that can, like, basically, hey there, Deep Throat, you can't do that, and, like, vice versa. Keeps mm-hmm. them sane or good, in good faith, I guess. And then, yeah, I wrote down, and then something about it being unconstitutional. My brain got tired of reading at this point. So I guess, like, whatever bill they're trying, or charter they were trying to, like, they're trying to re-charter it, or, like, I guess re-establish their business license, but with more stuff, and it was against their constitution, and they were like, no, and then they fought about it, and then the bank crashed, and then that's what the whole madness happened.
Right, I guess it was it a bank-run kind of situation, where everyone took their money out at once?
Yeah. Well, and it was like, yeah, I guess because everyone was worried that the bank was going to, like, crash, which it did. And then and then it was replaced by a state bank, and then it like leveled out, but it was a big drama.
Was this before he was president? Yeah, during Andrew Jackson.
1829 to 1837.
My president, so I must have missed that part.
No, we kind of touched on it. We did talk about it a little bit, because Van Buren was also involved with that as well before he became president. So we kind of talked about it last time, but both of us were like, I don't know, it's the bank war. There's a lot of like propaganda cartoons. They're really fun to look at, but
yeah, a couple of caricatures.
Yeah, I went to art school, man. I don't know nothing about finance. I know what juxtaposition is and chiaroscuro.
Pathetic fallacy.
Yeah, exactly. The rule of thirds. Come at me with that, not all this charter business license stuff.
So who was this guy during that time? He was like
a politician, I think, and lawyer. He went to school as like I think he went to school to be a lawyer. He was like really young when he did it, and his dad was the governor of Virginia. So he was just always in politics.
Virginia boy.
Yep. So far, the Virginian boys, I'm not a fan of.
No. Well, don't worry. They eventually all die.
This is true. Eventually, all presidents die.
Except for...
Yeah, he was a senator in Virginia, and then eventually became the governor as well, and then he was a House representative for Virginia, and then became the president, basically. So, like, he kind of, like, worked his way up from, I don't know, it's like a Pokemon evolutions, but as a president. Mm-hmm. Like, you start as a lawyer, then you're a, like, senator, and then you're a governor, and then you're a House representative, and then you're the president, as far as I understand.
What about vice president?
Well, yeah, I guess
evolution.
You can...
And then you kill...
It's like if you give an Eevee a moonstone or a sunstone, it's like a pronged path instead of just like a direct. So like you could be vice president and then be president, or you could just go straight to president, but you still get there in the end.
Should we start a conspiracy that John Tyler killed William Henry Harrison?
Because what part was Harrison a Whig? He had to have been.
Yep.
Yeah, so that makes sense. And he was like, I hate the Whigs, and Harrison's going to do a bunch of stuff that I don't agree with, so I'm going to put cyanide in his walking shoes.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll pretend that he got a cold.
I mean, if you had documentation that showed John Tyler signing his, like, inauguration or, like, acceptance into presidency, like, days before Harrison died, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Conspiracies, here we come.
It's all over for John Tyler.
It's all over, man.
For the Virginia boys.
The Virginias.
Okay, so tell me. So where are we? So like, what's next? That's interesting. Would you say?
Well,
chronologically.
Kind of. Well, so he signed. So when he was a part of the Whig Party,
mm-hmm.
he signed a lot of like Whig-controlled Congress bills. I don't know what
mm-hmm.
that means, but I guess like bills that the Whigs wanted to have pushed through.
Mm-hmm.
But he considered himself a strict constructionist.
What's that mean?
Do you want that? Basically means they're like legal philosophical people who are like extra, like they interpret the like Constitution like word for word. And I wrote in parentheses, AKA a hard ass. So I think he was just like
a type
really
A.
Yeah. AKA a hard ass. Where he's just basically like really into the law and was like, but the Constitution says AB in Section 3B, 7A, whatever. So I guess every bill the Whigs tried to pass, he was like, well, that's correct, but you didn't say like Jeopardy rules. What is da da da? I can't pass it. So he was like kind of like flipping with those and like was really strict about stuff.
Mm-hmm. It almost seems like he didn't want them to pass it.
I think so, yeah.
He's an inside man.
He was also a big believer in that, obviously, states' rights we talked about. Mm-hmm. And he believed that the president should be making majority of like policies instead of Congress. So he was constantly at odds with the Whig leader, which was Senator Henry Clay.
Right, I've heard quite a bit about this guy, but I'm not. He was just a high up in choice for president, right? Or
yeah. So he, you'll probably next week you'll figure it out. But I read that. So Henry Clay runs for president after John Tyler. Mm-hmm. John Tyler runs against him because he just basically doesn't want Henry Clay to become president. And then who ends up becoming president, which I think is Polk.
Mm-hmm.
James Polk.
Yep. James K. Polk.
James K. Polk. When James K. Polk enters the running, John Tyler pulls out, knowing that if he pulls out, all of his votes will go to Polk. So he literally only did it to make sure that Henry Clay doesn't become president.
Everyone I've heard, all the presidents that I have read previously, I've always like hated this guy. I don't really know what was wrong with him, but
it's funny because too. It's like when I saw. And I don't want to, read a book by its cover. But,
mm-hmm.
even the look of him, I'm like, you feel like that annoying kid in the back of your class that's, constantly asking questions or, throwing paper for no good reason.
Oh, yeah. He kind of looks like, he looks like Filch from Harry Potter.
No, but I will say there was one portrait of him, though, in his, younger days, and he does look a bit hot. But then I think it's just the artist was doing him a favor.
Probably. Yeah, he does. Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. When he was governor in 1826, he looked pretty cute, but I think that's just because he looks like a Pride and Prejudice main character and not actually of him. Anyways. So he was a hard ass, and he just kept doing that, and then eventually the Whig were like, all right, cool, you're done, you're out of here, and all of his cabinet resigned because they were obviously a part of the Whig Party and didn't want to support him. And then he was dubbed the accidency, or his accidency. Basically,
right.
He was like an accident.
A nice little jab, a little schoolyard name.
Exactly. And then he just ran the rest of his years as unaffiliated.
Did he do much while he was president, or did he just kind of... say F you to all the people who didn't want him to be?
Not really. It's one of those things where they're he wasn't really a very well liked president. No one liked him a lot. He did a lot for the southern states, and he passed a lot of bills that were like policy driven. And I feel like he was probably really smart and knew a lot about law and politics. But I didn't really find anything of him like changing the way. Apparently, he signed the bill that it was the what was it called? The annexation of Texas, which I think meant, I don't know if that's you're no longer a part of America or we're finally bringing you in. I don't know if I figured that out right, but
yeah, what did they figure out? What was
well, the thing is, he did it like 2 days after his 2 days before he was no longer going to be president. So he lays claim to making that deal, and that the following president just like confirmed it or like finished off like what it is. But he did the
hey, I inherited this mess.
Yeah, so that was his biggest like. He would like go around telling people, it's like, yeah, well, I figured out the Texas thing. I was like, okay, John, we get it.
All right, Tyler 2.
Yep.
So that's all he did, really, was.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't.
That makes sense.
Really,
that makes sense because he wasn't really voted for.
Yeah, he talked about, so like there's some economic policies, I guess, that changed the way some like money was done. He was really good with like some foreign affairs stuff, but there wasn't really anything like jaw-dropping, like holy shit, he figured out how judges work, or like some changing. It was just like very like there was like some treaties he did with some foreign affairs. Florida became part of the Union as the 27th state during his on his last day of office. Florida became part of the United States. That's really all I could find. He was anti-British. Yeah.
Ooh, I just looking at something called the USS Princeton disaster. Do you know anything about this?
I do not.
Oh, apparently he was on a boat, and there's a cannon, and somebody made something happen. I don't know. He almost died, I guess, from a faulty cannon accident on a boat. Interesting.
I mean, that makes sense. I feel like cannons back then were very, like, volatile, because you just had gunpowder hanging around. It's not so much like the cannon, it's just like you have gunpowder nearby.
David Gardner. Who's this guy? Oh, he's the representative. Okay, so one guy died, but it was what? Interesting.
Yep. I will say, like, my research skills hit a certain point.
Yeah, these Wikipedia pages are like always so long. It takes like 2 hours to read them.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard too, because it's like I usually hone in on just like their presidency. I don't go obviously like into their past of like their schooling, because I'm like, I just want to know about like what they did in those like 4 years they're president.
Yeah, they're probably a lawyer.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, everyone's a lawyer, everyone's a politician, or like a businessman. There was the Dorr Rebellion in May of 1842, his second year of presidency, where Rhode Island, it was a rebellion on Rhode Island. Tyler pondered the request of the governor and legislator to send in federal troops to help suppress it. I don't know what they were fighting, but he made it clear to the federal assistance would be given only to put down any insurrection once underway and would not be available until violence had taken place. Yeah. So
this guy had more children than any other American president.
Oh, bish. Yep. We're going to get into that. That's we can skip ahead. The only thing I have left is talk about like the Civil War broke out in 1861, so this is after his presidency. He was no longer president I think he was done in 1845.
Mm-hmm.
But he attended the Peace Conference, which basically in
What's that?
18 so in 1861 was basically I think was Abraham was not. Yes, Abraham was the president at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
had been fighting for the states to abolish slavery. And so it was basically a meeting where 131 leading American politicians met at the Willard's Hotel in Washington, D.C. On the eve of the American Civil War. So they were basically it was a bunch of Republicans who represented slave states in the South, trying to
Mm-hmm.
come up with a plan, and like they were basically trying to fight for. They're like, we know 7 other states have succeeded. They no longer have slavery. We were the last few. We don't want to. Let's come up with some sort of like agreement that we can keep it going. Of course, the Lincoln administration was like, no, like, this is America, this is we're a country, we're trying to move forward, no slavery. And of course that led to, I guess, maybe someone called their mother a goat, maybe there were some words exchanged, who knows.
Was there a duel?
Might have been, who knows, didn't get too far into it, but like basically the next day it was the beginning of the Civil War. And then after
Wait.
that,
So you're telling me the Civil War started because someone called someone's mother
no,
a
I
goat?
made that up.
No,
I made
okay.
that up.
This was
I'm
obviously
just
before
talking.
goat meant greatest of all time, of course.
Correct. This was like your mother smells of sawdust and poop,
Yes.
and not greatest of all time. And then he sided with the Confederacy side, and of course the war broke out, and it lasted a couple of years, and it was rough.
So did this guy fight in the Civil War?
No, I
Or
think
he's
he was
probably
probably too old. And what's interesting is a lot of historians will say that John Tyler died a traitor to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of his tumultuous presidency ended, and him joining the Confederacy, and obviously during the Civil War, they didn't win, and so his political career was shot because they were like, "You're an idiot," I guess. And the New York Times described Tyler as the most unpopular public man that had ever held any office in the United States, which I feel
Lord.
like there may be somebody who
Yeah.
has trumped that. That's
Possible.
words I'm using specifically. He did maintain some popularity in the South just because of his connections during the Civil War. But he died in 1862. So the war was in 61. So like a year later he died, basically.
Jeez.
And when he died, Lincoln was still the president because he was he still the president? Yes. Yeah. 64?
Yeah,
64.
sure.
Yeah.
If it was, yeah.
Yeah. And so normally when a president dies, whether they're a past or current, there's usually like half-mast and like a procession. Lincoln just like didn't acknowledge it.
Ooh.
And like there was no like mourning at Washington, there was no half-mast or anything. But in the Confederacy, they still had their like group. They still had like their people that still believe that slavery should be a thing. They had like a lavish funeral for him and had like a 150 carriage procession for him in the South. But the presidents did not. And also because you were saying he had 15 children, so he remarried while he was president. So he was married to a woman called Letitia Christian. But unfortunately, she had a few strokes and she died in 1842.
Maybe it's from all those kids.
Yeah. Well, I think they had a couple, but then he married this woman almost 2 years later. Her name is Julia Gardner. She was 30 years younger than him. And they secretly got married.
How old was he by then?
In 42. Let's see here. He was born in 1790. So in 42, he would have been like, what, 70?
Okay, so she was 40.
So
Half
she's
your
like
age plus
40.
7.
I think that works. Half your age plus 7. That just clicked in my head. Um. Yeah. So and like they
Damn.
got married secretly, and she was 5 years younger than his eldest daughter. Which was
Wow.
hashtag yikes. But yeah, so he had a crap ton of children, and had children into his golden years. So John Tyler was born during George Washington's presidency, and this was he fathered 15 kids, most that any president has said, which you mentioned before. And he also didn't slow down in his golden years. At the age of 70, his last child was born. And what's crazy is he has a grandchild that's still alive today.
Damn.
Because his son, which was named Lyon Gardner Tyler, also had kids into his elderly years. He had a kid at the age of 75. And then his son, he had two sons, Harrison and Lyon Jr., and Harrison's 94 years old right now. He was, and his brother, Junior, just died in 2020.
That's wild.
It's so wild to think about. Yeah.
Wait, so did you say he was born
So,
during George Washington?
yeah. So he was
Wow.
born during George Washington's presidency.
So someone's grandpa was born
Yeah.
in George Washington's.
Yeah.
Who's alive
Yeah.
today. Wow.
Yeah. And it's only because both generations had kids like the age of like 70, 75. That's how the timing's able to work out that they're still alive. Now, granted, I feel like this guy, Harrison Ruffian Tyler, 94 years old, that's getting up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the article I found
He's
that in
probably
was,
just
was
about to
ref-
start having children.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? But that's really the end of. I don't have a lot. It sounds as though he was a hard ass that loved law and loved the Confederation and.
How did he
was
die?
very
It
strict.
was just natural causes.
Yeah, didn't say.
Died of
let's see.
embarrassment.
Died of embarrassment. I think he just
Poor
died
health.
of old age, to be honest.
Oh, he died. He might have got a cold just like his predecessor.
Yeah.
I guess that's how they all died back.
Oh, yeah, I guess he suffered from poor health. As he aged, he suffered more frequently from colds during the winter. After complaining of chills and dizziness, he vomited and collapsed. Despite treatment, his health failed to improve, and he made plans to return to Sherwood Forest by the 18th. As he lay in bed the night before, he began suffocating, and Julia summoned his doctor. Just after midnight, Tyler took a sip of brandy and told his doctor, "Doctor, I am going." To which the doctor replied, "I hope not, sir." Tyler then said, "Perhaps it is best." Tyler died in Richmond shortly thereafter, most likely due to a stroke. He was 71.
Wow.
Wow.
Perhaps
Yeah.
it is best.
That's a really good, that's a really
Old
good
dying
sense.
man voice.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I feel like, because, like, healthcare back then probably wasn't the greatest. And same with, like, germ control or just, like, heating.
Yeah, they don't
and
even think they washed their
dampness.
hands when they did surgeries back then.
Oh, my God.
They're like, germs, what are these?
Man, see, I got germs up to here.
Germs up my sleeves.
Germs up
So, what's new in your life?
Not much, man. Not much. Just looking at presidents.
Learning about presidents, learning about banking.
Learn about banking. I mean, I feel like my first read through, I could tell that he wasn't going to be my favorite, so I didn't put a lot of. I was like, this is Mashy. This another.
I do find
It
it
is
interesting, though, that we're getting to the point where they're alive in the Civil War. Almost alive in the Civil War.
Almost.
Yeah, I'm sure the next guy will be a little bit more alive. Or maybe not.
Yeah. Well, I think so because, I mean, the war started in 1961, which was during Lincoln's presidency. But everything leading up, right? It's like it's a as much as the war only lasted, I think, was it a year?
Oh, really?
I think it only, I forget, we've looked this up before, I have at least, but I think what's funny is the war only lasted for, I think a year, but there was, 10 years before that of just, a bunch of politicians arguing at the White House. I feel like we've been talking about, I feel like Van Buren was the start of, he, kind of mentioned it, and everyone got, a whole huffy and puffy about it, and they've just been slowly still fighting about it up until, so it's like, what is that?
I've noticed a lot of just
like,
name calling and stuff instead of.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like
they
30
did
years
stuff,
of
but-
arguing, and
Yeah.
that starts a war, which makes sense. Like a slow
I guess.
burn.
I
of
mean,
them.
that's the two-party system at work. I guess.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
bickering.
But it's, I think too, it's like nowadays we don't have a civil war. It's still 30 years of bickering until a bill's passed, or how many years it is until something's like changed per se. But it is just funny how they're just kind of bumping heads, and then they just get so frustrated. They're like, "Well, guess what? We're gonna have a war now. Yeah."
Wow. Do you know that it was 4 presidents in a row who are all Republican? Right,
4
after-
presidents?
4 presidents after Lincoln. There was a National Union, and then Andrew Johnson was a little bit Democratic for the second part, and then it was just a Republican streak.
Yep.
A lot of Republican.
A lot of Republican streaks, to be honest. Well, I mean, it just depends on. It's eerily gone 50-50 since Bill.
Bill who?
Like, Bill Clinton was Democratic, George was Republican, Barack was Democratic, Trump was Republican.
But Reagan and Bush were. Bush Senior were both back-to-back Republicans.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's funny. Like once you hit well, I guess once you hit like Franklin Pierce and like Abraham Lincoln, that's where it starts to go into just. And the National Union, I think, is based off of the war, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but we'll have to find out. But I think like that was. I
Yeah,
have
okay,
no
so
idea.
National Union Party was a name used by Republican Party and elements of other parties for the national ticket in the 1864 presidential election during the Civil War. That's what it is. So the war didn't last for a year. The war, it looks like the war lasted for like 3 or 4 years. And during the war, they actually had an election. And so they called themselves the Union Party because they were a split country at that point during the Civil War. So, like, I guess they were, like, legally or I guess, like, philosophically, we can't call ourselves a Republican Party because our nation's currently split in our ideals, or at least that's how I
Trying to
interpret.
bring everyone back together.
Yeah, exactly.
That must have been like really wild after the war, like after a civil war. Just the tensions probably are still a bit high.
Well, I think too, it's like, I mean, okay, so here's one thing that's unrelated but kind of related. I don't know if you ever watched the show Yellowstone.
I've heard of it. What time period does it take place in?
So, Yellowstone takes place like in today's days.
It's like a
But-
Western.
It's kind of so. Oh my god. Okay, so I've become super obsessed with it. I thought I was gonna hate it. I kept seeing it on like ads, and it kept popping up on my like Amazon. Like, you should watch Yellowstone. I'm like, I don't want to watch this. Is no thank you. But I have become so obsessed with it.
Yeah.
It makes me want to be a cowboy, even though I know I'd be horrible at it.
Are they like
Basically,
actually cow people?
Yeah,
Like,
they're ranchers.
Cow people.
They're
Are they
cow
cow
people. Cowboys and cowgirls. Basically, so it follows a family of ranchers. It's a ranch that pushes cattle, and it's on it's in Montana on the Yellowstone land, right next to the Yellowstone Park. And the quick synopsis is this family's been here for like 6 generations. The original Dutton family like did the Oregon Trail. They're headed to Oregon, but they only made it as far as Montana. And they started pushing cattle, and they claimed this big, huge land, and they've had it in their family for generations. And now, modern day Montana, they're trying to fight to keep the land as like, as the technology and advancements. People are trying to build airports on it, or they're trying to like sell the land, and it's kind of like, it's like not a mafia family, but they do shit like a mafia family.
Do they, I remember you saying kill people for the family before. Is that what they do?
Yeah. Yeah,
They kill
basically.
people, really?
They take them to the train station, which is basically they just like take them to the border and like throw them off a cliff. But they're usually the people that they've killed are like either someone who's like attacked their family physically or attempted to like sue them or something silly like that.
Dang.
It's weird though, because like none of the characters are good. Well, one character is probably technically your protagonist, good guy, but most of the family members are like absolutely trash.
Yeah.
Like,
find
I would
that's a
not
lot
wanna
of
be friends
shows
with
these
them.
days. Like
Yeah,
a lot
but-
of shows,
but
there's no.
I'm rooting for them.
Yeah, but they're
Even
like
though
bad.
they're-
They're anti-heroes, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. Because even like the people that they're fighting are also bad. So you're like, well, I know what they're fighting for, and I believe in what they're fighting for, even though the path that they're taking to get there isn't really the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like a big, huge conversation to get here. They've come out with two, prequel spin-off series.
Really? Already? Isn't it
miniseries?
just the first season?
No. There's
Oh, no?
like 5 seasons out right now,
Oh,
man.
really?
And
Yeah.
I watched
Why am I
I
just
watched
hearing
them
about this
all.
now? Really?
I don't know if it just got hyped up.
Maybe,
I just
yeah,
happened to
must be.
watch it.
Because I just heard about this year.
I watched majority of it over the Christmas holidays, and I thought I had more seasons to watch, and I blazed through it, and I got to season 5, and I went to go start season 6, and like it's not out yet.
Oh, damn. But they're
Damn.
just starting the 2 new spin-offs?
Yeah, so they have 2 miniseries that are like it goes back in time to like so the first one's called 18 something.
Oh, I've heard of this too.
53.
Yeah.
Yeah, 18 whatever. So that deals with the family coming over. So it's the original Dutton family when they are coming from Texas and they're doing the Oregon Trail to go settle somewhere, and it's after the Civil War. So the
It's
dad
after the Civil War? Why is it
after
called
the Civil War.
1853 then?
Oh, 1 second.
Because that would have been Franklin Pierce.
That would make 1 second.
I guess, I mean...
1883.
Oh,
1883.
okay, that makes more sense.
1883. Wait. Yeah, and the other one's 19 something.
Oh, wow.
1926.
Very confusing. How do you remember which shows are which with all these confusing numbers?
Google?
You just say, oh yeah, that's the one. That's the thumbnail. So do you know
Yellowstone.
what is the Oregon Trail? It's just a trail that people had to.
Basically, Oregon was this like so it was 1883 and 1923. Those are the two series. So the Oregon Trail is just basically like the space between Texas and Oregon was like no man's land. It was like there was no civilization, so basically people would just caravan out there to go settle. Because I believe the States was like, hey, immigrants, hey, people living and coming to America, come live in Oregon, but you got to figure out how to get there. And so basically, the people would just go with like carriages, and then like just the rough and tumble outdoors would get them. Like there'd be like storms or dysentery, or they just wouldn't bring enough food, and they would just basically die on the road. And then they eventually built a train. So a train would go. So you could train out there, but it was usually for the rich. And so those who didn't have a lot of money would still go and just travel via horse and carriage and just camp their way. Yeah, so I forget how we got into this. Oh, the main dad in 1883 it was in the Civil War, so he has like flashbacks of like being in the war. And fun fact, it stars Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, who are two like country singers.
Yeah.
So it's a really weird. I didn't like the spinoffs as much. The newest one that came out. They're not bad, but
Tim
you can
McGraw?
like they're not. Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, they're country singers. They're not actually actors. So
I don't know if
I'm
familiar with Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, but I can't picture them acting. Maybe they can act.
Here's the thing: they weren't bad, right? Like I've seen worse acting skills, but you can also tell that they're not like that's not their profession. So it was a little bit weird. And it was kind of the thing of like, and it also has Sam Elliott in it, who's the classic cowboy actor.
I'm Sam Elliott. No,
I'm Sam Elliott.
I'm Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott. I got a mustache for days.
My mustache is a big rug on my upper lip. He was in.
Problematic.
What's the Star is Born? He was the mustache guy.
He was the mustache guy. He was the manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then 1923 has Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren in it. So 1923.
Oh right, I've
upped their game. So that one's a little bit better, but you've also got some arguably, like, just resume-wise, higher tiered actors. I would say Helen Mirren's really good.
I'd rather watch Harrison Ford than Tim McGraw, I think.
Yep. And Kevin Costner is in the main series, and he plays the, like, matriarchal John Dutton family. He owns the ranch. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Dances with Wolves.
No.
That's also another cowboy movie that's
so.
very, very good. Kevin Costner was in that as well, and Kevin Costner did a great job in that film. So it gives me, like, kind of Dances with Wolves vibes. Now, granted, it's a completely different character, and he's not, like, I think in that one, too, he was in the Civil War or something. He, like, gets lost in the Americas. But yeah, it's really good. And I forget how we got in this conversation, but I'm happy we did.
You're telling me, I think you're talking it to bring it up to the Civil War in the story.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I guess because it is a bit of a contention piece, because, like, after the Civil War, there's just kind of, like, so the Union wins, slavery's done, but there's this weird break where you've got these people who were conscripted to be in the Civil War, but may not have necessarily believed for or against. So they may have been fighting for the Confederacy, but they were like, you know what, I really don't care if we have slavery or not. I just want to live my life and have a family. So you have these people who are just trying to make a life, and because war is expensive, of course, there's poverty that occurs. So, and in this spin-off, the 1883, their family basically has no money. They originally lived in Louisiana, and then they came up through Texas, and, like, were basically trying to go find land. It was like free land that you could just go, you put a stake in a field, and you're like, all right, this is my land. You don't buy it from anybody. It's just America's, like, whatever you want. That's what you have. So that's where a lot of immigrants came through, because they're like, I can come from wherever and just go claim where I want my home to be.
What happened if you were like, because the South had conscription? So do you know what they did if you didn't? If you said you wouldn't fight?
Imprisoned.
Oh, really?
I think you went to prison.
Damn. I know the North did
you.
originally have conscription, but I think they eventually did.
Yeah.
But they also got, what they did was very smart, was got the slave. They freed the slaves and then got them to fight on their side.
Yep.
Genius.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of people just went to prison, and then because you were in prison, they would just force you to. I think. But I'm not I don't know. I talk with a lot of chutzpah.
I heard that they murdered them.
I heard that Abraham Lincoln told John Tyler that his mother was a goat.
Well,
and that's why
the greatest of all time.
But not the greatest of all time. No.
Do you know what I've been watching on TV? I don't know if you've watched this, but The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
Have you watched the last episode?
Yep. Bawled my eyes out.
Oh.
Yep.
So sad.
So sad. So good. And I'm just... In a world of so many adaptions and so many remakes and so many stories that not necessarily fall short but just don't hit it so far,
it's nailed.
I mean,
it's like taking it way better than, like, the game, I'd say.
They've done, like, okay, I'm getting all verklempt. I am a believer of adaptation. Don't make it 1-to-1.
No.
But of course, I think a lot of people get all up their knickers in a twist when anything, like,
changes,
slightly gets changed.
But also, it's a video game. Like, it's not always going to be interesting.
Exactly. I mean, there are people out there that are pissed off that it's not a video game.
Get over it. Get over it.
First of all, get over it.
Second and I know you're guys.
And if you want a 1-to-1, then go and play the game again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is I don't know. They've just done a great job so far, and, yeah. It was great. I was not expecting that episode because it's been such a
it's been like depressing, kind of hopeless.
It was like we got a bit of a spooky episode. The second episode, like, it was a bit more scarier. And I literally had just told my friend who doesn't do well with scary movies that she should watch it after the first episode, because the first episode's like not spooky, but it's like setting up like zombie apocalypse kind of things.
Yeah.
And then, like, after the second episode, I messaged her. I was like, maybe don't watch it. But then I messaged her again and be like, the third episode. I'm like, okay, you have to watch the third episode.
Just watch every other second episode.
Yeah. Just watch the first and third episode and you'll be fine.
I wonder if they'll if they'll do many seasons or something, because there is a second video game too. But I know like a little bit. I haven't actually played the game, but I know like enough to know what to expect.
I watched my roommate play the first game because I'm a weirdo and I actually enjoy
Watching
video games. But I also do The Last of Us is also a very cinematically made game, which was like it changed the game.
Changed the game. The game of
Changed
games.
the game industry, storytelling, mocap. Ellie, get on the pallet.
I'm also really liking the Game of Thrones lady. What's her name? Ellie. Did you watch Game of Thrones? She's like the.
Oh yeah, she was Mormont. She was the yeah. Oh yeah, she's great. She's recently was in a show about, it's like in medieval times, and she's the daughter of like, not King Henry, but she's the daughter of something, and it's like a weird, it's kind of modernized, but still in like the medieval times. I forget what it's called. Something was Birdie something.
Yeah, Catherine Birdie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one's been getting pretty good reviews as well. So excited. It's yeah, no.
Oh, Lena Dunham, right? I've never even heard this. Dun, dun, dun. Cool. What else is new in the television? Have you seen Avatar 2 yet?
I have not, because I don't think it's on Disney Plus yet.
Oh, really? I'm trying to think what other bangers. Recently, this isn't a new movie, but have you ever seen Fiddler on the Roof?
Yes.
Oh, I watched that again recently.
That's my favorite go-to song.
Which one?
With the matchmaker, make me a match. It's great. Because also, it's in Mrs. Doubtfire, which is always a great.
Right. Make me a woman.
Whoa.
That's another classic, Mrs. Doubtfire. That's that's like one of the VHSs that we owned. We didn't own a lot of movies, but that's one of the VHSs we had growing up. It's a classic. I watched that many times.
So they've added Wakanda Forever to Disney Plus, but I don't see. Oh, I've got Avatar Deep Dive, but it looks to be like a behind the scenes making.
Oh, maybe we'll save that till yeah.
I'm gonna save that for later. We'll save that for later. I've been watching. Now we've talked about Dungeons and Dragons before.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's that movie that's coming out. It looks pretty interesting.
The movie's coming out, but there's also currently a animated TV show. Mm-hmm. So for our 6,000 watt listeners that will definitely be hearing this, there may be one of you out there that watch or know of Critical Role, which is a D&D streaming group. They've done 3 campaigns, and they've gone back and they did a Kickstarter to get their first campaign made into an animated series.
Wait, and as someone was telling me about this recently. Was it you?
Yes. It might have been me. It's very possible. But there are a lot of people out there who watch it and love it. Now, I am a supporter of, if you like animation, if like 2D animation, if you like fantasy or anything that's like kind of Dungeons and Dragons related, this is a great show to watch. And you don't have to have any context for their play style, because it's a retelling of their campaign. So they've got little hidden gems in there for the fan who's like watched it before and knows of the story. But I think that anyone going into it to watch it's great, and that's what I've been watching. So every Friday they've been releasing 3 episodes on Amazon Prime, and it's their second season that they're
they release 3 episodes a week?
Yeah.
Good lord.
They're only like half an hour episodes.
And it's animated?
It's animated, yeah.
That sounds like a lot of...
Yeah, and it's like, I would put it in... Well, I think they've done them all. They did them all, and then they're just slowly releasing them.
Oh, okay. They're not making 3 a week.
No. God, no. They've been doing it for the past year and a half, and they're now, like, finalizing them, pushing them through. My brain is gone. Oh, it's a show it's not like a kid's show. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I would say Avatar, The Last Airbender. probably when they made it was for kids, and then eventually it became for more of an older audience. And then you've got Arcane that just came out that obviously is for like an older audience. So I'm very, very excited about all of these animated cartoons that are coming out that aren't necessarily for kids, but aren't your like classic like American Dad or like Family Guy. None of those are bad shows, but there's just a bit more oomph behind these, like the storytelling in some of these animated shows.
Artistry.
A little bit more artistry added. Yeah, instead of just being like a quick, quippy kind of like Simpsons comedy show. But anyway, I would, if you like animation and you like fantasy, I would recommend it because there's 2 seasons.
Cool. What's it called again? It's called
The Legend of Vox Machina.
Oh, Legend of Vox. I think I've seen that show up.
You'll probably have seen ads for it because it's been pretty big. But there are they did a Kickstarter, so it was fan funded for their first season. And then Amazon backed them for their second season because they're like, you've got a guaranteed audience of like 100,000. We'll give you a second season, and they just got greenlit for a third season, and they're releasing another series that's based off their second campaign that they just announced.
Wow!
So cartoons, man, I can't wait for the
future. Future of AI making cartoons.
Future.
Think of how many cartoons there'll be when AI makes them for us.
Oh, good God!
Hey, also, Oscar season's coming up. Are you? Do you watch much movies? Have you been catching up with the nominees?
So, I'm very excited that Everything Everywhere All at Once has been nominated for Best Picture, and I hope they win because they goddamn deserve it.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites, I think.
Like, it blew me out of the water. I constantly think about that movie. I do love the Oscars. I'm very good at guessing movies.
Yeah. Have you seen Triangle of Sadness? That's another one of my favorites.
No, but that's on my list for a while.
Yeah, that's one of my... I think that might be... I'm not sure which one I like more. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I like Banshees of
welcome to our President's Podcast, where the last 10 minutes we'll talk about movies and film.
Yeah, wait, when is the Oscars? When is the Oscars? We should do an Oscar pool.
February?
Oscars date. We should do an Oscars pool.
So there is usually one I go in at our place of similarity. And I've come in second place before. I don't want to brag. I'm really good at guessing, even though I haven't seen all of the movies. Because I usually can get...
I usually do that too. I pitch in the Toonie. I don't know if they still make you pay for it. But what I do is I just go to a website that says which ones they are most expected to win, and then I always do very well.
I look at the synopsis of the movie. So I look at, usually I can guess by past knowledge of like who's won before, because you'll usually have certain things like if someone's going through an illness, or if there's like a story of I bet you
Brandon Fraser will win Best Actor.
I think he's gonna win it.
I haven't even seen The Whale, but I know. It'll be on the 12th of March, the Oscars, so we can do like an Oscar pool coming up.
Perfect.
March.
Because I find sometimes they give it to people and not necessarily on the work that they're nominated for. It has been given to people as like an honor mention of like, you should have been nominated 5 movies ago and won.
DiCaprio.
Like Leonardo DiCaprio. He got it eventually.
Yeah, all you had to do is get attacked by a bear.
I feel like Scorsese's also one that hasn't won.
Really? I'm surprised.
Oscar.
I wonder if Will Smith will be slapping anyone this year.
Who knows? Oh, yeah. Sorry. That's what it was. Martin Scorsese won for The Departed, but was nominated like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 times.
Really? Wow.
But only won once.
I'm surprised.
Yeah. But never won.
I'm trying to think of what will win best. We're also past an hour, but I think that I don't know. Who knows?
That wraps it. I mean, I'll say that John Tyler is not my favorite president.
Yeah, seems like a bit of a knob, to be honest.
We'll see. Our next one is a Democrat.
James K. Polk. Look at that mullet.
He's got a pretty sick mullet, I will say. Zachary Taylor just looks like a war general who like accidentally became president.
He does look like a general.
Yeah, Millard Fillmore just looks like an American Winston Churchill.
Mm. He always reminds me of Alec Baldwin. I've mentioned that
Yes.
before. Franklin Pierce looks quite young.
Yeah. Also, another fun fact: John Tyler did not have a vice president.
Right, because he was the vice president.
Because he was the vice president. But you'd think, like, if he came up with the rule of, like, okay, when the president dies, the vice president takes over, he would have made sure he had a vice president in case something happened to him. But that adds to the conspiracy that he killed Harrison because he's like, I'm not going to put someone there because they might kill me.
Mm-hmm. I think
Shakespearean Hamlet.
I don't know if that was the case back then, but that now they have a Speaker of the House. I think is third in line to be president. Or something.
Just in case.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In case there's
because I've also heard a lot of companies will, if they have like if they're flying CEOs or owners or co-owners of a company, they'll make sure that they're on separate planes.
Yeah, so they can crash
just
into
each
other. Alrighty, Dutch.
What an ending.
Yeah.
Now I can eat my crackers.
Oh yeah, see if you can quickly eat 6 crackers as we roll the credits.
That was one. I can't do it. My mouth's already dry from one.
That's the whole point. It's impossible.
Cucumber.
You're cheating.
Well,
that's cute. Cheating. Well. See. Good night to all, and good night.
Happy time, everybody.
Happy Groundhog's Day coming up tomorrow.
Well, depends on when people listen to this. We might be past
They'll probably be spring by the time people listen to this.
That's true. We're in the future. Wait, no, we're in the past.
We're in the past. Now we're in the future.
We're in the future. They're in the past. But when they listen to us, they'll be in the future.
Yeah.
It hurts my head.
And they'll know if they saw the shadow. All right.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye. Sweet dreams.
I'm hitting stop.